to unravel the Food and Drug Administration's approval of the pill. In a unanimous decision written by Justice Brett Kavanaugh, the court held that the plaintiffs lacked standing to challenge the FDA's actions. The case had returned the issue of abortion access back to the Supreme Court, even as the conservative majority in overturning Roe v. Wade declared that it would cede the question to the people and their elected representatives. The challenge to the availability of the abortion medication used in a majority of abortions in this country reflected one of the latest fronts over abortion access. And Fulton County prosecutors asked a Georgia appellate court to dismiss Donald Trump's appeal of a state court ruling allowing District Attorney Fonnie T. Willis to continue prosecuting the 2020 election interference case against the former president and several of his allies. In a late filing yesterday, Donald Wakeford, an assistant Fulton County District Attorney and prosecutor on the election case, asked Georgia Court of Appeals to dismiss the appeal, saying that it was prudent to do so because Trump's and his co-defendants lacked any evidence to justify a ruling in their favor by that court. And Donald Trump argued that a limited gag order in his falsifying records case must be lifted post-verdict as a presidential debate nears, and he says as his rivals continue to speak about his legal predicament during the peak of the campaign. Now, Donald Trump filed this motion with the court yesterday. District Attorney Alvin Bragg said in a letter to the judge that it opposes an immediate termination of the gag order, and it formally responded to the defense's motion. The prosecutor said that the court had an obligation to protect the integrity of the proceedings and the fair administration of justice, at least through the sentencing hearing, which we now know is July 11th, and the resolution of any post-trial motions. And after a failed vote last week that would have ensured nationwide access to contraception, Democrats today tried to force a vote to enshrine protections for in vitro fertilization. Now, this is a fertility procedure that has helped millions of families have children. They also tried to protect the expansion of treatment for service members and veterans. The Right to IVF Act, according to the Democrats, is a comprehensive package aimed at protecting IVF. Well, that bill failed to pass and get the sufficient number of votes that would have allowed protection of IVF. And remember, yesterday, the Southern Baptist Convention voted to ban IVF as a practice that it would endorse for its congregants. Also, as we get ready for debate season, yes, there's going to be debates happening. There's going to be conventions happening. Both the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention is happening. Well, the Republicans don't want to see any protesters outside of the Republican National Convention. So protesters are not going to be allowed in a large Milwaukee park that will be near the arena where the GOP will host its July convention. Now, this is after a months-long pressure campaign by the party put on the city of Milwaukee. The Secret Service is expected to expand its security perimeter around the park so that Donald Trump and others won't have to confront protesters as they conduct the Republican National Convention. This is the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by two veteran contributors, Rashad Frazier Gaines. He is the founder of Black Progressives, and Lauren McKay is back. She is a 5-time Emmy Award-winning TV host, producer, and former journalist. And in hour two, you know what we do. That's the hour where we go deep, where we dig behind those headlines and bring you those stories that people are talking about. Well, I'm super excited today because in hour two, one of my regular contributors and his mother, who I happen to love, who happens to be a super fan, that's Dr. Calvin John Smiley. He's going to be with me one-on-one in hour two because he's out with a brand new book called Defund, conversations towards abolition. So you all know Dr. Smiley has been unapologetic about his support for the movement that we saw spring forth after George Floyd's murder. Lots of conversations about defunding the police, reimagining the police, shifting dollars from police budgets to social services, creating non police type enforcement groups or teams that would respond to any number of calls that are routinely now handled by police. So this book, Defund, is a collection of interviews that Dr. Smiley had with leading abolitionists, organizers, and thinkers. And he wanted to talk to these thinkers and organizers about the uprisings of the summer of 2020. Again, after George Floyd was murdered in May, we saw this, international protest that erupted all over the globe. And Dr. Smiley took some time to interview a lot of those people who were leading the protests. We saw the rise of the hashtag defund, and we saw a lot of work being done to try to address police brutality, some of the systemic racism that we saw in many police departments across this country. So I can't wait to sit down with Dr. Smiley in hour two and talk about his book, talk about the folks that he interviewed, what he learned from those interviews, and what does he see as the pathway forward? Because we continue to see police departments brought under scrutiny or scrutinized by the Department of Justice, forced to enter into consent decrees. We continue to see police go rogue, shoot unarmed African-American, both men and women. So a lot of folks feel like a lot of the progress that was made in that summer of 2020 has actually been lost, and that the backlash has been so significant that it's hardly noticeable that there were any gains made after George Floyd's murder. So make sure you stick around for hour two, because Dr. Calvin John Smiley will be in conversation with me regarding his new book. But before I bring on my guest, here's what I'm thinking in real time. I was at a book signing yesterday. I actually interviewed, had conversations, fireside chat with Bakari Sellers. Bakari is a political analyst. He's my colleague on CNN. He's a award-winning New York Times best-selling author. He's written several books that have won, or have become, I should say, New York Times bestsellers, including a children's book. He has a new children's book that's going to come out in 2025. But we were at a book signing on Tuesday talking about a book that he wrote too after George Floyd was murdered, after he reflected on television about how difficult it was to be a Black man, the burden that Black men and Black people carry. He had a lot of response. This segment that he did actually went viral, and it caused him to reflect on where we were in this country around the issue of race. So he wrote a book to address that. And one of the things that happened in this book was a young lady asked a question. She asked, how could he continue to support Joe Biden and the Biden administration? Because in addition to talking about this book, of course, we talk politics. And she went on to just give this scathing account of Biden administration. This is all around the 37,000 plus people that have been killed in the Gaza Strip. She talked about the Biden administration's support for Israel, its policies around support for Israel in the Gaza war. She used the word genocide. She used open air, prisons. A lot of words and terms that we often hear. Folks who are pro-Palestinian and who believe that the Biden-Harris administration should be doing a lot less to support what they believe to be the senseless murders that they call murders that are happening in Palestine as Israel vows to eliminate Hamas from the face of the earth. So she asked this question, and Bakari began to respond, talking about the alternatives and what we are facing in this election, and the two-party system and who the presumptive nominees are for both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And he asked her, who would she like to see as president? So she responds that her candidate of choice in this election was none other than independent candidate Cornel West, which folks in the audience had an interesting response to. I'll just say that it wasn't very favorable. I'll just leave it at that. But what happened after that question is folks started to chime in, and many folks started to, really try to show her that when you vote in an election, you can't necessarily just be a one issue voter. You shouldn't be a one issue voter. That mature voters think about a candidate and all of their policies and all of the things that they've done. And you all know I'm very clear about it. I am a Biden-Harris supporter, and I started to read the list of things that he has done and the accomplishments that they've had in this one term and what we could expect. I always point to Ketanji Brown Jackson. I always point to the 200 judges that Biden has appointed, the most African-American female judges appointed by any president to the federal bench. So those are the things that I'm proudest about and things that cause me to be team Biden and Harris. And doesn't mean I agree with everything that this administration has done, and made that very clear to her and told her, find something that one of these candidates has done, and broaden your thinking out past just what's happening in Gaza, because we're all very, very disturbed by those, the numbers of people that have died. And here's what I want to send her, and I'm going to send this young lady. Donald Trump did an interview on a podcast and just came out today, and he vowed in the most ardent way his support of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. And he talked about how his support has been consistent, steadfast since the country began its military campaign in Gaza, and that he would double down on his support for Benjamin Netanyahu if he is elected president. So I just want people to be real clear about the choices that they're making in this election and not have any sense that getting rid of Biden, not voting for Joe Biden, and having Donald Trump, because unfortunately Cornel West is not likely to be our president. We just don't have a system set up where independent candidates can win. But Donald Trump is very clear. There will not be a ceasefire under Donald Trump. There will not be the end to the Israeli attacks on Gaza and Palestine under Donald Trump. Donald Trump has made it exceedingly clear that he is 100% backing Benjamin Netanyahu. And he said, letting him lead however he sees fit as it relates to this crisis, and that he's going to be there to provide him with as much military aid, financial aid, and support that he can garner from the U.S. So just want folks to have that in mind as they are trashing Biden and Harris and saying no to Biden and Harris. Make sure you realize that a no to Biden is a yes to Trump, and Trump is doubling down on his support for Israel's military attacks on Gaza. When we come forward, more of today's trending and breaking news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us. We've got lots to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a voice in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007, they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
History in the making. Come join the Get Me Expo Sunday, June 23rd, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in Gardena, California. The first lowrider, custom cars, and bike manufacturing expo. Come learn the economics behind the billion-dollar industry, hosted by legendary celebrity car builder T.J. Lofton, featuring panel discussions and vendors. Come network, tickets, and vendors. Go to getmeexpo.com, GITME-expo.com. Become a sponsor. Great vibe, getmeexpo.com. See you there.
You can do it all by yourself, baby girl. What's your name? Let me talk to you. Let me buy you a drink.
Spilled your drink? Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up spills quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less than the leading ordinary brand. So you can get back to your night. Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See Capital.
We are back, and in this hour, Lauren McKay and Rashad Frazier Gaines are joining me. And in hour 2, going to be going one-on-one with Dr. Calvin John Smiley, talking about his new book called Defund: Conversations Towards Abolition. Welcome back, Lauren, and welcome back, Rashad. Always great to be in conversation with both of you. Let me start with you, Lauren. Trump was on the Capitol today. He has not been back to the Capitol since the insurrection 2021. And from all accounts, it was one big happy party. Everybody came out smiling, and they had been anticipating him coming, wanting him to unite the Republican Party behind his candidacy. They wanted him to talk policy, to help them message on things like abortion, to lay out his agenda. And again, not surprisingly, all of the media reports is that it was just one big family reunion. What do you make of this, including many Republicans who had called him out and were critical around the insurrection and critical around the big lie that the election was rigged? None of that seemed to matter. They all just fell in line and basically were kissing the ring today. I think, Lauren, you're muted.
Oh, well, that would help in driving my point home. But but no, I think kissing the ring is a really good point to make, because that's essentially what it felt like, or what it sounded like. It reminds me of a family reunion. You know, everybody gets together, or a big family meeting. You know, a big incident happens in the family. Nobody wants to talk about it outside. You just sweep it under the rug, and now it's all good and gravy. But the Republican Party has a lot at stake here, with just 2 weeks ago him being found guilty for 34 counts. So I think their decision to sort of kind of, let's sweep it under the rug, let's have a birthday party for Trump, it feels a bit tone deaf, but then it also feels like, let's just create a mirage. It's all good. And to kind of get people away from what has just occurred and what is to come, and kind of almost like, let's pivot publicly so that we can move forward and win this thing. So politically, to me, it's not a bad move. It's just, who do you think you're fooling? Is on the other token.
Yeah, Rashad, Trump was pumped up. He was beating his chest. He was even bragging about the fact that some of those House Republicans that had voted to impeach him after the January 6th insurrection, he was bragging that many of them lost their reelection campaigns. He mentioned Dan Newhouse of Washington and David Vallado of California. Those are the only two who voted to impeach him who are still in office. So like 8 or 9 of those guys that did that aren't there any longer. Was this the kind of shot in the arm that you think the Republican Party needed to go out and engage voters towards their goal, obviously, which is winning the election in November?
I think what we're seeing is something that the Democrats will never have. The Democratic Party's tent is really large, so many different factions within it, and we're never going to be on the same page because everybody under the tent wants to be prioritized. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. All I'm saying is, as a matter of fact, I'm actually a fan of Black people standing up for being prioritized and gay people standing up for being prioritized and Muslims. And I'm a fan of each faction fighting for their power and fighting for their space. In the Bible, it talks about Gideon fighting for his peace, right? And fighting for their peace. We're never going to have that over here. They can do that. They can pretend that everything is hunky-dory and let's have a gay old time when we walk outside. They can afford to do that. We can't afford to do that. Like the folks over here can't. And I think that's what you're seeing. And the reality is, yes, those two guys, thank them for voting for his impeachment, but you were complicit in all of the other foolishness before then. So I don't feel sorry for them. Yay, they made it out alive. They skate by the hair of their chinny chin chin. But the reality is they were complicit in so many other things, even down to the whole thing with Liz Cheney. Kind of like her, right? She's a tough cookie. She's one bad grizzly mama. But the reality is Congresswoman Cheney had been complicit in the foolishness for years, right? So you don't get a prize for finally doing the right thing. At least not from Rashad, you don't. Maybe y'all might want to give him one, but I'm not passing out free cookies today.
Well, this is the trophy generation, Rashad, right? So if you just show up for the game, put your uniform on, you get a winner's trophy. But the point about
Yes, and those kids are their children and grandchildren, right? So what we're seeing now in the rest of society, these are their kids and their grandkids.
But guess who wasn't there today? Liz Cheney. Because despite going along with what you call the nonsense, she, made the cardinal mistake of crossing Trump. And in the party of Trump, not the Republican Party, but the party of Trump, if you cross Trump, he decides if you get to stay or go, which is interesting, Lauren, because Larry Hogan, very popular Republican governor, former governor of Maryland, after Trump was convicted on those 34 counts, came out and said that the jury verdict should be respected, that the American people should respect the jury verdict. Nothing earth-shattering, right? A normal thing for a governor or former governor or elected official, a thinking person, an educated person to say. That's what we believe about our jury system. Well, the Trump apparatus went after him and told him, drop out of the Senate race. You're not fit to be a Republican because this is the party of Trump. Now, ironically, just recently, Trump endorsed Larry Hogan in that race against Angela Alsobrook, who is a very talented Black woman who has the endorsement of the sitting governor, Wes Moore, and who, by all accounts, I was just at an event with Wes Moore, says she will win that race. But Trump decides who stays and who goes, who gets love and who doesn't. So even though his apparatus said Larry Hogan should drop out of the race, he decided to embrace Larry Hogan. So it's kind of a crapshoot if you are, at the barbecue or not when you make a statement against Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think that's probably intentional too, whether he subconsciously does it or not. I think it's so that people can stay on eggshells and not know if they're going to be in or if they're going to be out with Trump. I think that's just his personality, to be honest. But I think it's also the way his personality and the way he leads are really intertwined here. And so I think that's very much in the way he leads. And there also could be some sort of incentive behind the scenes that we don't know yet of why he did that endorsement. Because Trump is a chess player. So he's always moving pieces for them to work out for his best benefit. So I think that's let's see what happens down the line with that, though.
Yeah, you're right. He likes to keep people guessing. He thinks it's the reality show, The Apprentice. He doesn't ever want you to know where you stand with him. And that keeps you, kowtowing to him. That keeps you kissing the ring. That keeps you trying to appease him. And you never know what things may make him happy and what things, upset him. Definitely a part of his strategy, I think, to gain control of the Republican Party and to maintain that control. When we come forward, I want to talk about Christian conservatives because they are largely responsible for the Trump presidency. They got what they wanted in the overturning of Roe v. Wade. They've gone after transgender rights. They've gone after books about Black folks. And they've got a lot at stake in this upcoming election, including their efforts to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion that's now being taken up by our lawmakers. When we come forward and talk about what people really know about what this administration would do to dismantle so many of the rights and privileges that we enjoy in this country. When we come forward, right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. The U.S. Department of Justice is revealing its findings in a years-long investigation into the Phoenix, Arizona Police Department. The almost 130-page report was released this week and shows the department used excessive force and violated the constitutional rights of individuals, especially minorities and those who are homeless. During a virtual press conference, Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark of the DOJ Civil Rights Division added that officers would also use, quote, escalation as de-escalation, end quote, which in turn would put officers and the public at risk. The investigation was opened in August of 2021. A Lexington, Kentucky Vietnam vet is being honored at the Library of Congress in D.C. WKYT reports the story of Robert V. Owens' life will be shared in the library's Veterans History Project. Owens was an African-American Marine vet who died in 2000. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Taking a look at your drive through the OC area, starting with an accident blocking the carpool lane of Fullerton's 57 South before Nutwood Avenue. Right now, stop traffic is from Lambert Road up to about 30 minutes. And watch for some people walking in lanes. Sigler back in Rancho Mission Viejo continues as now a crash investigation is underway, blocking the roadway of the 74 East between Cristianos Road and Gibby. Now, this is involving a fatality, unfortunately, with stop traffic from Antonio Parkway La Plata split. In Anaheim Hills, a crash remains on the right shoulder the 91 East at Ware Canyon Road, Yorba Linda Boulevard split with a 50 to 55 minute traffic jam running heavy from East Street. Raymond Avenue split.
Hey, pool season fanatics, your summer persona is calling. It's time for sun-soaked party scenes at MGM Grand, new luxury cabanas at Bellagio, and sandy beach living at Mandalay Beach. Show off your poolside only with MGM Rewards. Visit MGMRewards.com for details.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers' search for a head coach is back in the news today. NBA sources are confirming that J.J. Redick will have formal interviews this weekend with Lakers owner Jeannie Buss and general manager Rob Pelinka. The Lakers had casual conversations with Redick in May during the NBA pre-draft camp in Chicago. If Redick does well in meetings with Buss and Pelinka, NBA sources claim Redick, who has no previous coaching experience, will move to the top of the list among candidates. The Lakers are trying to regroup after they were turned down by Connecticut coach Dan Hurley. Redick is one of the analysts for ABC's coverage of the NBA Finals between Boston and Dallas. Boston is up 3-0. If the Celtics win Game 4 Friday night to sweep the finals, Redick will have more time to visit with Lakers management this weekend. Stay tuned. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Pardon the interruption. It's me, Tavis Smiley, here to remind you that we are now just days away from our historic Climate Justice Symposium live on C-SPAN this coming Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center. We are now pushing capacity. So if you plan to join us, stop procrastinating and get to KBLA1580.com right now and register. Attendance is free, but registration is mandatory. Black folk are flying into LA from all across the country to be in the room when we go live to the world with a stage full of Black brilliance on the eve of Juneteenth. And you live here, you better get to KBLA1580.com right now and claim your seat.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Environmental justice is racial justice. Environmental justice is social justice. This is KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We're back, and Lauren McKay and Lauren McKay and Rashad Frazier Gaines are with me in this hour. And in hour two, Dr. Calvin John Smiley will be here with his new book called Defund: Conversations Towards Abolition. All right, Lauren, I'm going to ask you about, I started the show talking about this young lady at this book signing who said she could not vote for Biden and Harris because of their policies of supporting Israel in the, massive attacks we've seen Israel launch against the Palestinians in their effort, they say, to eliminate Hamas. And there were folks in the audience at this book signing that tried to get her to think more broadly about the administration and some of the things it had done. And that brings to mind this story today. So I don't know if you recall, but in 2021, by executive order, Joe Biden declared that as the nation's largest employer, the federal government must be a model for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Now, that was by an executive order that said, if you are hiring anyone in the federal government, you should be thinking about, how do we achieve diversity? How do we achieve equity, inclusion, accessibility? Meaning, how do we make sure we're hiring people in wheelchairs and people who have other disabilities? Well, J.D. Vance, a senator from Ohio, very conservative Republican senator, he put forth a bill yesterday called Dismantle DEI Act. This is the latest in a cascade of challenges that have arisen over the past year to programs that give what they call preferences to minorities and women, including we've seen attacks on the Minority Business Development Agency and others. Now, this bill is not likely to pass because we have a slim majority in the Senate. But if Donald Trump is reelected, this is an executive order. So that executive order by Joe Biden in 2021 can be completely wiped out by Donald Trump if he were the president. And if the Republicans win the Senate, then this anti-DEI bill could have a chance of passing and becoming law. When people like this young lady make those statements about Gaza, do you think, do they have any clue about how many things like this DEI executive order the Biden and Harris administration has done, and how throwing Biden and Harris out means you are going to be throwing out, for me, it's the possibility of more Black women on the federal bench. For folks who work for the federal government, it's going to mean probably the dismantling of all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at the federal government level, which will signal to any private company, if the government doesn't have to hire Black folk and minority folk and disabled folk, you surely don't have to as well. Do you think people are thinking about that at all?
Areva, I don't think that, I think these are such high, intense, emotionally driven topics that, when you're in an argument with someone, you're like just focused on that thing and that thing that made you mad, versus taking a step back from your own narrative, your own passion and story. And like you said, looking at the bigger picture. I think it's hard to do that because what is happening in Gaza, it feels so personal on so many levels. As brown people, we're kind of sitting back like, is this how this happened? This is how y'all did us? Low key. I think there's so much going on for people. I can see how it's easy for a woman, the woman who you used in your story, for her to say that because it is such a hot button topic right now. But what I do think she is missing is this bigger picture. For example, one of Trump's main donors is Miriam Adelson, who gave $90 million to his which helped him win in 2020, and has already given, I believe, $20 million. I could be wrong. And her connection to Israel is very strong. Very in hey, part of the reason why Israel, the embassy moved from where it was to Jerusalem was in part and parcel from that donorship. So I don't think people are connecting all the dots and what could potentially the wave of where this could go. And to your point, a vote against, Biden and Harris, whether you like them or not, is ultimately a vote for Trump. So you have to think about that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. This mega billionaire donor that helped Trump win in 2016, and as you said, she just came around and pledged her, millions and millions of dollars to his 2024 campaign. And yes, she is very pro-Israeli government, very pro-Benjamin Netanyahu. And Rashad, I don't think folks are doing nearly enough talking about Donald Trump's position on Israel, which is why I brought up at the beginning of the show too, the statements he made in this podcast where he was very clear, because Benjamin Netanyahu ain't about a two-state solution. He's made that very clear. That's not on his agenda, not trying to see that happen at all, willing to annihilate thousands and thousands of more people if it means, one, protecting himself, staying in office because he has his own challenges. So I don't think people are making the connection. Those that hate the Biden policy on Israel and Gaza are thinking enough about Donald Trump's position, i.e. his connection to these mega Israeli donors, his moving of the embassy to Jerusalem, his open commitment on this podcast that he's going to give Benjamin Netanyahu pretty much free reign. Do you think the Democrats need to be talking more about, hey, if you think Biden is riding for Benjamin Netanyahu, the Trump relationship with the prime minister is even deeper? Do we have your sound, Rashad?
I'm trying to formulate words. that will not get me uninvited and will not have me on the Gallatin tomorrow. I think the reason the Democrats can't say certain things is because, unfortunately, President Biden's entire presidency has been a tit for tat with Donald Trump. Trump took stuff out of the White House that we weren't supposed to take with him. Then Biden comes forward and says, hey, DOJ, I did the same thing. I want you to come look at it. Like, yes, he took the high road, but you still did it. Donald Trump just got 34 felonies. They released pictures yesterday with President Biden going to Wilmington to hug his son because his son is in some mess. So it's been this tit for tat thing the entire time. And even though there are people who want to ride real hard with Biden, it's just kind of like, well, I can't say it's okay for you, and then I say it's not okay over here.
But Rashad, I gotta stop you. Rashad, let me stop you for a second. How can it be tit for tat? Hunter Biden is on nobody's ballot. So you can't, that's apples to oranges. Hunter Biden is not running to be anyone's president. You can't compare Trump's conviction on 34 counts to Hunter Biden's conviction.
I am not comparing them. All I'm saying is that I think there are people in America who literally just, if we're looking at this, it's literally just been up and down the entire time. And that's how a lot of people feel. I don't feel no type of way about it. I'm just relaying how the people are feeling. There are a lot of people who are just like, I don't see much of a difference. I'm not saying they're right.
Rashad, those people, come on.
I am not saying they're right. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just telling you what the people are saying. The people are saying.
And Rashad, let me just say this before we have to go to a commercial break. Let me just tell you this. When those people say there's not much of a difference, please pull out a picture of Ketanji Brown Jackson. That's Exhibit A, people. There is a huge difference. We did not
Justice
see
Jackson,
Ketanji. Maybe put her picture next to Amy Coney Barrett. Hold that thought, Rashad. Hold that thought. We'll get back to you when we come forward. More of this conversation right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers just like you. From big savings on used EVs to building new charging plazas, LADWP is charging ahead to help all Angelinos experience the benefits of EVs. Get rebates of up to $4,000 for a used EV and $1,750 for a charger. Learn more at ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada. Member FDIC.
Hey, LA residents, it's planting season and the perfect time to get shade trees growing around your home. LADWP and City Plants are giving every resident up to 7 free trees. That's right, 7 free trees delivered right to your door. Trees are great for the environment, help improve air quality, and can help you save on your bill when you use less air conditioning to stay cool indoors. Learn more at ladwp.com/free trees. That's ladwp.com/free trees.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys. Let's take auntie to the swap meet. Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $2,860 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8% plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
The news on vapes talks a lot about the technology and teen use.
But parents need to know more about the dangers of nicotine. So know this. 1. Nicotine is a poison that can rewire teens' brains. 2. It can increase mood swings. 3. It can limit attention and learning. So even when it comes in new tech, nicotine is brain poison. Go to undo.org for more.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga. My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's.
And Lauren McKay and Rashad Frazier Gaines are joining me. And in hour 2, we're going to be talking to Dr. Calvin John Smiley about his new book called Defund: Conversations Toward Abolition. So, Rashad, you said you're just reporting that some people feel like there's no difference. You know, I'm a lawyer, and lawyers, we deal in facts, we deal in evidence. So when people tell me they feel a certain way, and I ask, okay, well, what's the basis of your feeling? And they, start pontificating. Then I, of course, want to know what is the evidence and the facts that support whatever that position may be. So I just gave you a piece of evidence for those folks who say there's no difference. Ketanji Brown Jackson, the record number of Black female judges appointed to the federal judiciary under Joe Biden. And here's another really big difference. This is a piece of evidence. Today, the U.S. Attorney, Kristen Clark, Columbia Law grad, Harvard undergrad, opened a top-to-bottom investigation called Pattern or Practice Investigation into the city of Phoenix and its police department over its use of force policies, its allegations of retaliation and discrimination against Blacks, Latinos, and Indigenous people. These pattern and practice investigations that the Department of Justice does to try to bring accountability to police departments who have just horrible histories of police brutality and discrimination against Black and brown folks, they were shut down under Donald Trump. He and his administration, his DOJ, his head of the Department of Justice, Bill Barr, and the guy that was there before him, they said, we are not investigating police departments. Beat Black folks upside the head with clubs and sticks, shoot them, kill them, step on them, do whatever you want to do. We are not investigating you. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Merrick Garland, Kristen Clark said, no, there is a level of accountability that police departments have to be held to, and there are violations of civil rights of people of color, which we will not tolerate. So when these people say there's no difference, we have to correct them. We can't just let them be out there willy-nilly because the facts don't bear that out. The facts bear out that there are huge differences. I worry, Lauren, a Trump administration, a Trump U.S. attorney appointed by Donald Trump, which he has the right to do. He already told us he's going to use the Department of Justice to go after his enemies, to prosecute his enemies. But even beyond that, we should expect these pattern and practice investigations, the Civil Rights Division, basically to be wiped out under a Trump administration. I think all Black folks care about police brutality. And I think if they had a real good understanding of what Kristen Clark, Black woman, has done in that job versus what Donald Trump did to shut this whole department down, people would care about that.
Who's gonna go? I think I'm gonna go for it because I think there's so many moving parts to this when it comes to protesters, the way protesters are treated. To your point, Areva, during 2020 was a huge eye opener of what officers were allowed to get away with. I mean, we saw during the protests of 2020, officers driving their cars through protesters, like with posters. They didn't have signs. They didn't stomp the Capitol building with guns. They were peacefully protesting and were driven through in a variety of states, beaten. And in Phoenix, I believe it's 37% of those people that were harmed, beaten, and bruised were homeless, defenseless. So I think it is a poignant point to say that under the Obama administration, I know as I was a reporter in Cleveland, the DOJ had several different investigations going on the state level and the city level from the Tamir Rice case. We saw a lot of movement going on, and then it died during the Trump administration. And now there's some movement going, but it's like, is it too little, too late? I don't know, because it could die if this man gets back into.
Oh, it will die.
He's
made it very clear. It will die. They don't believe that the Department of Justice, the federal government, has any business. Trump has made that very clear in investigating local police departments. That's a part of their forward 2025 plan, is to give complete autonomy to police departments. So Rashad, is this a piece of evidence that perhaps these people who say there's no difference might be inclined to say, I know one of those protesters that got beat up. I know somebody that got tear gassed. I know somebody's been shot by the police, and I welcome an investigation into some of these police departments. And I am concerned that they will go away.
So Reba, I say this with love. This is the problem in the Democratic Party. When people tell people how they feel, Democrats go to the textbook. And that's fine. But people aren't voting by facts. They're voting off their emotions. So we have to start dealing with people in their emotions. Like, so you're an attorney. I'm an advocate.
So help me understand, how do you get somebody to feel emotional about the importance of civil rights investigations?
They're already emotional. And the fact that they're willing to even talk, to me, is a starting point, right? Because if they're saying, I'm voting for Trump because he gave out stimulus checks, because y'all know our community, that's what some people are saying. Okay, bro, let me show you this clip where the same people that you're saying you're going to vote for, where they were actually the ones fighting this. And Donald Trump held up your check just so you could get a paper check in the mail with his name on it, because he knew that you were going to say he gave you a check when it was really the Democrats. So I can have that emotional conversation with them, and it will be factual. However, I can't go straight textbook. I have to meet them where they are at. And I think that the Democrats don't invest enough money in meeting people where they are at.
That's fair. I think that's fair. I think that is a very fair point to say that Democrats can and hopefully will do a better job of that. Lauren, you said you were in Cleveland. You saw the investigations after Tamir Rice. What would you say to Rashad's point of how do Democrats message that where people are? Because we know the emotional response we all had to Tamir Rice's shooting. We know how we felt about, Philando Castile. We can just read through the list. We know that touches us deep.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. Meeting people where they're at. I think to that point, Biden feels a bit out of touch with. It's like he's trying to be like, I'm down, but it's like, are you, bro? Like, I think there is like a miss. I know in Cleveland, during the Tamir Rice situation, with it being he was a kid, I covered that as a journalist, and then covered the fallout of the DOJ. There was a level of like, we don't want this in our city anymore. And it was really the community coming around this kid and the family and being like, this can't happen in our town anymore. So it was very much like the government heard the people, and the people heard. It wasn't perfect, and there was a lot of like issues with getting the commission together and all that, but it was a sense of, this is all of our responsibilities. and we all need to like check and balance this. I don't see that in either side right now, to Rashad's point.
You know, one thing I was thinking about, Rashad, is that to the point about Republicans, you're kind of falling in line, kissing the ring today. Republicans have an overriding way that they want to see America. You know, the Christian nationalists, you know, they want an America
that's not Christian, that's not Christ-like, right? The Christians that aren't Christ-like.
Yes, basically, they want to support white supremacy. Let's just cut to it, right? They want a world where white people are on the top from a hierarchical structure. I think your point about Democrats being a big tent party, if all three of us had to say, what is the world that Democrats want? What would you say to that, Rashad?
I want to believe there's something in me that believes that Democrats really want equality and parity. Like that's
equality
and parity, right? Like I believe that we want everybody to get along and not have to have fear of violence because of their gender or their identity or their skin color or the texture of their hair. Like I have to believe that, because if I didn't believe that, I couldn't do this work, Areva. If you didn't believe that, you couldn't fight the cases and do the research that it takes for you to defend people in court. Lauren, you couldn't tell the stories that you're telling, right? But we have to believe that. I just need the people at the top of the party to show me that they believe that too.
So I think we would agree that that is a basic tenet of, you know, the Democratic Party. But the problem becomes, because we're a big tent party, how we achieve that equity, fairness, and parity become, I think, where we start to splinter and where we see the division in the party. Whereas the Republicans unite around white supremacy, whether they call it that or not. They have different words for it, different terms for it, but they all come together as they did today and kiss the ring of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump offers them the greatest shot ever of maintaining white supremacy. It's an interesting conversation. I want to have you guys back to go deeper on this conversation of how do you tap into what a party that is diverse as the Democratic Party, but fundamentally, I think we all agree on some basic tenets. How do you tap into that in a better way, particularly messaging in a presidential election? We're going to continue to explore that with Rashad Frazier Gaines and Lauren McKay. Thanks to both of you for joining me in this hour. Always a lot smarter when I spend time with you. When we come forward, Dr. Calvin John Smiley is here. He has a new book out. I'm super excited to sit down one-on-one with him, talk about policing and what the Democratic Party really wants. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you,
Thank
Areva.
you. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Rashad.